We got some surprising news coming out of Amazon where apparently they've secured the rights to the James Bond franchise from the long-standing rights holders of it. Now, at first, this might not necessarily sound like a bad thing because Amazon has the funds to actually really do some stuff with it. And the last several Bond movies really haven't been that good. But then when you start diving down into it, it's potentially a lot more troubling. This article from the Hollywood Reporter has more details on what this deal actually entails, as well as some of the criticism people have for it. So the headline here: Amazon seizing creative control of James Bond sparks fandom fears. Amazon's TV and movie track record is causing fandom worries about Bond future, quite possibly the worst thing to happen to the franchise. Now, I'm not going to be 100% pessimistic about this because Amazon has done some good stuff in the past. They've also done some awful things in the past too. Whenever they put out a new show or movie, you would just kind of flip a coin to determine whether or not it's going to be good. I would say so far it's more bad than good, but there is still the potential for future Bond installments to actually be really good under Amazon's control. But there is still a lot about this that does kind of get me worried. For the last 4 years, James Bond fans have been hunting for any sign that a new Bond movie was gaining momentum following the exit of lead Daniel Craig. Thursday's news that Amazon had struck a deal with Bond rights holders Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson to seize creative control of the franchise means the longtime boggy stalemate between the two parties is over, and the new Bond will absurdly move forward. And that's because Broccoli and Wilson had the rights to the creative aspects of it. So even if Amazon's MGM wanted to actually do something with it, they had to approve it. And so far, there's been a deadlock in that they didn't want to approve some of the stuff that Amazon was wanting to do with it. And instead of just negotiating it, Amazon eventually just decided to, I guess, buy them out of their aspect of that. So now Amazon can just do whatever they want. Now, like I said, this could be a good thing with it, or it could just be a bad thing. It really just depends on what Amazon is wanting to do moving forward. A lot of people are pointing to Rings of Power as a comparison, saying that like, oh, this is what's going to happen. They're just going to DEI in and wokeify James Bond and other things like that. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case because Amazon has put out some good stuff in the past that has stayed true to the source material. But still, I can understand why people would be concerned about this because it's not like those worries are completely unfounded. So why are so many acting like Amazon just beat the living daylights out of 007? Best-selling author Don Winslow wrote on X, absolutely heartbreaking, the end of an era. Film Speak critic Griffin Schiller opined, this is quite possibly the worst thing to happen to the franchise. It'll be milked dry. Predicted another Amazon is going to scrape the barrel here to be shameless as possible. Plenty of others have written RIP James Bond. And that's because I think a lot of people are expecting this to be what we saw with Star Wars when Disney bought the rights to that. Because before every Star Wars released felt like it was something special, or anything new Star Wars related felt like it was something special. Then Disney got a hold of it and they're like, well, we spent a lot of money on this franchise, so let's do what we can with it. And that means endless TV movies or like streaming movies, TV shows, etc. And a lot of people are thinking like, is Amazon going to do that when it comes to James Bond? They spent the money on this, so they're just going to make it a James Bond universe where you have all these endless spin-offs and other things like that, just so they can have more content for the streaming platform. Now, Amazon is usually a little bit more restrained than Disney in a lot of these aspects, and also they didn't spend nearly as much on this as they did on what Disney spent on Star Wars. So they don't necessarily have the same motivation to endlessly milk it, but I could see that being a possibility at least sometime in the near future. The deal seemed particularly surprising as Broccoli had long retained such a protective grip on the character. Following the footsteps of her father, Albert R. Broccoli, the Broccoli's family's careful stewardship has long been credited with the franchise's enduring appeal and its largely successful evolutions over nearly 8 decades. It was one of the last pieces of beloved IP not controlled by a major corporation. one free of unwielding TV spin-offs over explaining prequels or complicated serializations. Yeah, and they've pretty much had control over the creative rights to it since I think like the first movie. So that's why each movie feels like it's a special entry in it, because they're not just wanting to do anything just for the sake of it. They want to make sure anything Bond related is something special. But Amazon had the rights to produce the stuff, but they didn't have the rights of the creative aspect of it. The Broccolis had to actually give the final say on it. So that's why Amazon is like getting kind of fed up with them. And that's why a lot of people are thinking there's just going to be those endless spin-offs and cash grabs right now, because now Amazon can do whatever they want. Fans' outcry and skepticism occurred every time a beloved franchise changes hands, but in this case, their misgivings are not without reason. And it's actually kind of funny that even a lot of the media is pointing out that this could be bad things for the franchise. Usually the media will be protective over these major studios like Amazon, but in this case, you actually see, I would say, some honesty or transparency with the Hollywood Reporter, in that they're actually willing to talk about this and address fans kind of in a genuine manner, as opposed to just trying to dismiss any criticism as unfounded and things like that. So Amazon, after all, spent nearly $300 million, significantly less than the billions Disney spent for Star Wars, but still, that's a sizable investment. Creating its own Bond-like international British spy drama that's the Citadel. Excuse me, that's not what they spent for the deal. The series launched in 2023 to soft reviews and meager audience scores. Amazon has ambitiously conceived the show as not just a series, but an instant franchise with different Citadel spin-off shows planned for various countries worldwide and characters that would eventually all team up, Avengers style. So that's what people think we're going to see when it comes to the Bond franchise moving forward. This article does point out the Jack Ryan series, Reacher, both adaptations from books that were actually pretty good series. So like this was saying, there are some good things that Amazon has produced, but also bad things. Rings of Power is another one that was brought up here, that was a series that was really divided amongst fans. It says it was divided amongst fans, but still popular in terms of streaming numbers. Not really. The streaming numbers that we had, given how much they spent on it, were not that great. And I think the only reason they actually renewed it for a third season is because they already had that in the deal, right? To have 3 seasons of it. I don't know if that's the case, but they lost over half their viewership during season 1, and then like lost another half of their viewership in season 2. So it's looking like things are not going good for that one. So even though it is kind of popular, their audience for that is ever growing smaller. So Broccoli once described Amazon's executives as effing idiots, and this is in regards to what they wanted to do with James Bond. Broccoli was also reportedly incensed by executive dismissively referring to James Bond as content. And that's not good, because when you have executives who don't care about something, they're like, we don't care if it's a James Bond movie or if it's good or not. It's just content for us. We just want to make something just so we can have stuff to put out there. And this article is pointing out that if the Citadel is kind of any indicator of what they want to do with James Bond, then yeah, that does fit that content model. But also more troubling is just the fact that Amazon really tries to push their own streaming service. They had the creators of Roadhouse had to fight to actually get any theatrical release for that movie, because Amazon wanted to keep it just on their own streaming platform. And that's kind of the idea. It's like, well, maybe Amazon's going to do that, so we're no longer going to get a theatrically released James Bond movie. Every James Bond movie is just going to be something that just put on the streaming platform right there. Maybe it'll get like a short stint in theaters, but that's pretty much it. Then that'll be followed by a lot of other spin-offs and other things like that. I've heard people say a Moneypenny origin, or a show focused on her, or a Q origin story, or something like that. I mean, but you can imagine Amazon, if they're just trying to put out stuff, then that's what they're going to do. This article does kind of conclude by saying that what Amazon should be doing is exercising restraint when it comes to James Bond, where they should put out a movie, release it theatrically, see how that does, and then go from there and kind of treat it how the James Bond franchise has been treated thus far, as opposed to just thinking like, we got the rights to it now, let's just put out as much stuff as possible, as fast as possible, Never mind the fact that whether it's good or not, they might even take the approach like, we want to make money off this, so just put out a bunch of stuff, give it all really low budget, so it'll pretty much be guaranteed to make some money because it's James Bond related. It won't be good and it'll eventually just kill the franchise, but maybe at that point Amazon's like, well, we've made enough off of this, so let's just let the thing go already, and that's pretty much the end of it. I hope that's not the case. I hope they do exercise some restraint and just decide to produce James Bond movies, but with actual respect to the franchise and the source material, instead of just using it as an opportunity to milk content and, even worse, trying to push a political agenda. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest in entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.